Sometimes when it comes to the NBA draft and the prospects in those classes, the numbers don't always tell the full story. Where a prospect doesn't put up great numbers in college or the other pre-NBA situation they are in, but end up putting up better numbers in the NBA and reach heights that are much higher than you would expect based off those pre-NBA numbers. We have seen multiple players end up putting up much better numbers in the NBA than they did in college. But why is this the case? Well, it usually boils down to the situation being different than what the NBA situation ends up being. Usually these guys end up on good college teams where they have to serve the basketball more because the team's really talented, or they end up in situations where the skill set they are in isn't fully utilized because of the system they have to play in during their college days. I think Houston forward Jarace Walker is the next one in line when it comes to this. Walker isn't putting up the most eye-popping numbers at Houston to say the least, especially compared to other one-and-done prospects we have seen in the past. However, despite that, I think he has a case for being a top 5 player in the class, because when you watch the tape, you see incredible potential he has as a versatile player on both ends of the board, on top of the intangibles and traits as a basketball player. The reason Jarace Walker isn't putting up big time numbers in college is because he plays on a really good Houston team that runs a system where the action is just more spread out. There's a lot of good players on that team, and nobody's really putting up big time numbers outside of maybe Marcus Sasser. In a way, it kind of reminds me of Scottie Barnes' situation at Florida State, where the numbers are more of a reflection of the system they play in rather than the talent of the player. Like Scottie, the tape tells more of a story with Jarace Walker than the numbers do in college. I think on a team with more opportunity, Jarace would be putting up better numbers. However, regardless of the numbers, Jarace Walker is an incredible prospect. What stands out most with Jarace Walker is the physical tools. Since his high school days, he's been a physical specimen. He's had an NBA-ready frame since he was 15 years old, and I don't think that's hyperbole. I remember the first time I ever saw Walker play in person. I asked somebody where he was going to college next year, and I was shocked to find out he was only a sophomore in high school at the time. He stands at 6'8", he weighs 240 pounds, and he has a 7'2" wingspan. This is the perfect frame for a forward in modern basketball. He's also a really good athlete on top of that. I think his movement skills as far as straight line speed and lateral movement are pretty good. He has good vertical pop, and he's just absurdly physical. Athletically, I wouldn't say that Jarace Walker is a freak athlete, but he's well above average as an athlete, and I would go as far to say that he's a good to borderline great athlete for a forward. He is somebody that is ready to play NBA basketball right now at 19 years old as far as handling the physicality jump from going from college and high school to the NBA. But it's what Walker does on top of those physical tools and athleticism that make him a potential top 5 pick in this class. Jarace Walker is a really good passer. It's not always reflected in his passing numbers as far as assists per game go because of the system he plays in, but he does have really good feel in this regard. He makes great reads as a passer. He is very capable of making passes to almost all areas of the court. He has a good handle, especially for his position, and he makes passes in multiple situations, as a ball handler, as a roll man in the high-low, in the middle of the court, off catches, on post-ups. He really just does everything you want from a passer at the power forward position. I feel like he fits best in a connecting role as a passer. I don't think he has primary creation upside as a passer. If he did, he would probably be a top 3 lock in this class. But given his physical tools, I think his skills as a passer are extremely valuable. I believe his assist per game numbers will go up once he gets to the league, and depending on the team that drafts him and the role they ask of him on offense, I don't think 4 to 5 assists per game is out of the question for his rookie season. Now, Jarace Walker does have some question marks as a scorer. Part of it is his pedestrian scoring production at Houston. Part of it is what shows up on tape. I do think the fact that he plays in the system he does at Houston on offense is a factor in some of the scoring production, but I also think part of it is stuff on tape as well. He's not consistently an aggressive player as a scorer. He doesn't always use his physical tools to his advantage. He doesn't always look to create his own offense. Sometimes he seems content to just play within the flow of the offense, and sometimes that can be a positive trait when it comes to fitting with other young talented players, which he has had to do in the past, whether it be AAU, whether it be what he did at IMG Academy, where he played most of his high school career. And IMG Academy is a school where you're playing with other 4- and 5-star players, so fitting in with talent is important, and Jarace Walker did that at a high level. It's why he was a 5-star recruit and McDonald's All-American. And I also think as far as where he will get drafted, based off the range he is projected to be drafted in, it could be a positive. However, the downside to this is that he doesn't fully take advantage of situations that he really should be taking advantage of. And considering he has the physical tools to dominate possessions on offense just by being bigger, stronger, and more athletic, you would like to see more consistency as far as scoring aggression because he has the tools to do it. He should be a player that lives at the line regardless of the system he plays in or not, just based off his physical tools and the feel he has as a player. He's just that good in those regards. Now, there are times he does show promise in these areas, and I do think these flashes are encouraging enough to believe that he can be a good scorer in the NBA with proper development. There are times he imposes his will physically and it's just too much for the defenses to handle. Walker has flash scoring potential that does make you wonder if he can be more productive as a scorer in a different role. He's a really good transition threat because of his athleticism. He has the tools to be a physical scorer around the basket. He has shown flashes as a self-creator and even as a shooter. Now, I do think he still needs work as a shooter, a decent amount of work I would say. He's far from perfect as one. I wouldn't say it's a strength in his game by any means, but I don't think you can ignore the flashes on tape because they are encouraging in my opinion. I think early on his rookie season, Walker will show his most scoring potential in transition and as a play finisher, two areas of scoring I'm confident he will be good at right away. I think his progression as a shooter off the ball and as an on-ball self-creator in general, in an expanding context of expanding on those flashes that he has shown, should be a big emphasis of his early development, whether that be on the court, during game speed reps, or behind the scenes, based off the other players on the roster of the team that drafts him. Walker has a ton of possible outcomes as a scorer at the next level. Maybe this is just a product of the college system he plays in, and he will be a player that takes a massive jump in production once he gets to the league, like we saw with Scotty Barnes. Maybe this is just who he is, and he ends up being a capable scorer that plays within the flow of the offense. And most likely, and something I believe is the truth, it's somewhere in the middle where his development moving forward will dictate the outcome. Regardless, I don't think Walker will be a liability on offense at the next level. I do think his solidified skills and traits as a passer and play finisher give him a decent floor on offense, but his progression in key areas as well and thinking about what it could be is what is going to be the biggest swing factor. What is his wiring as a scorer really like? It's easily the biggest factor in him potentially reaching his ceiling. I do think there is enough on tape as a scorer to feel comfortable taking him as a top 10 lock easily, given everything else in his game, but if he wants to reach his ceiling as a player, he will have to prove he can be a scorer who's willing to hunt for his own looks on offense consistently, and if he does, I do think he will reach the ceiling of being a star in the NBA. However, despite the intrigue and questions with Jarace Walker on offense, defense is what makes him a top tier prospect. In my opinion, he is the second best defensive player in this class, which means he would be the best defensive player in this class if he wasn't in the same draft class as an anime character that happens to be generationally good at basketball. Walker has shown he's good both in on-ball and off-ball situations on defense. He has great defensive ground coverage, he can block shots, he can play passing lanes, he's capable of playing just about any defensive coverage, he can switch onto multiple positions, although I wouldn't say he's a true 1-5 defender. But at the same time, I'm not too worried with him in switch situations because he is capable, even if he isn't somebody I would say should be defending guards and wings full time. He has high feel for the game on defense, he's extremely smart on that end of the floor, he's disciplined as a defender, doesn't really commit silly fouls, which is really encouraging for a young player. He reads opposing offenses very well. He's a good communicator on defense. He has a super high motor on that end of the floor as well. I don't think Walker projects to be a lockdown, put him on an island against the opposing team's best offensive player every possession kind of defender. That's really not how NBA defense works to begin with. But I do think he is someone that is a good on-ball defender. I don't think he projects to be a Spurs Kawhi Leonard or pre-Brooklyn Nets Ben Simmons kind of defender. However, I still think he has potential to be a great defender because he is a good on-ball defender, even if he isn't someone I think is going to be like big-time elite. And he is elite at other areas of defense. I think he has potential to be a monster defensive disruptor, someone that can be a menace off the ball in man and zone defense, be a leader on defense as far as communication goes, because I think he's a really good defensive communicator and has high feel for the game on defense. He will have the athleticism to be versatile and have incredible defensive ground coverage, be productive in terms of blocks and steals, and have the motor on top of the athleticism to make recovery plays. This is someone that I think has potential to be highly productive as far as face value stats on defense, and be highly productive in areas of defense that are arguably more valuable but don't show up in the box score stats. And that's somebody that can be a top tier defender in the league. It's not a guarantee, but the tools are there for Jarace Walker to be an incredible defender in the NBA. Jarace Walker is a player that I am very encouraged by. He has the physical tools, athleticism, motor, and feel for the game on both ends of the floor that make me believe he does have a high floor as a prospect. I don't see many outcomes where he doesn't work out in the NBA. At the very least, I think he will be a rotation player. Someone that can be competent on offense at best and is a high motor defensive player. Someone that can be a big positive as far as impact on the game goes without having noticeable statistical production. But I think he can be even more than that. If he can expand on his self-creation and shooting flashes, I do think Walker can not only return top 5 value in this class, but maybe even top 3 value in this class. I think he might just be one of those guys who just produces more in the NBA as far as stat sheet numbers go than they did in college. I think the flashes with him are real and can realistically be developed to the point where he is consistent as a threat in those areas. I'm not saying he's going to grow into this Jason Tatum level scoring forward, but I do think the flashes on tape are encouraging enough to believe he can grow into a respectable to even good shooter and creator. And given what he shows as a passer and defender, if you add a respectable shooting and creation game to that, you will get a player that returns top 2 value. It's far from a guarantee that he does. But my pitch for him as a potential top 5 pick is, at the very least you can get a player that can contribute in a positive way based off what he's good at already. But if you develop him correctly in specific swing area factors, you could get a start. A 6'8", 240-pound, long-armed, athletic, physical forward that's extremely versatile on both ends of the floor and is really productive on both ends of the floor That's what a star modern forward is, and that's what Jarace Walker has the potential to be. Will he be that in the NBA? Well, that's something only time can tell. If you made to this point in the video, thank you so much for watching. The fact that you guys do watch my videos means the world to me. This one ended up being a lot longer than I initially anticipated when I decided to make my breakdown on Jarace Walker for this 2023 NBA draft cycle. I never expected this video to be 15 plus minutes long, but it is 15 plus minutes long because I had a lot to say. Walker reminds me a bit of Jalen Duren in a sense of there's more to him as a prospect than what's on the surface, and when you actually watch the tape, you're going to get a much more detailed idea of what he is and a lot more interesting idea of what he is as a player than if you just look at the basic box scores and the basic idea of what he is as a player, which is what Jalen Duren was at Memphis when he was in college as well. So that was really why this video was so long. I'm wondering if I did a Jalen Duren breakdown video during his draft cycle, the video would also be this long. So yeah, that's really all I had to say for this one. I kept you guys long enough. With that being said, have a nice day, and I'll see you guys in the next one.